And then when I watched that video, I was like, holy how can she even think of this?
This is Hallie Tut. She is a photographer and director turned VFX artist. She has collaborated with brands like Nike, Taco Bell, Video Leap, and many more. She became an internet sensation by creating some of the most mind-blowing short videos on TikTok.
I made this deal with my dad that if I can hit 100K, my dad will let me drop out.
Yes. How much the video got?
That video got 7 million views.
What? You're in your room, but you're able to use Blender, Unreal to create all of these worlds. This 50 years ago was not possible.
It's getting very much to a level where you don't need any kind of production team or budget to be able to play on the same level as Hollywood.
Since people call you super creative, what does creativity mean to you? Hallie, welcome to the Bad Decisions podcast.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It means a lot for you to give us your time. We are super excited to get right into this. And before we start asking all of our questions, I do want to talk a little bit about how we actually started meeting you online, right? I believe it was the doom scrolling video that we saw on your Instagram.
The one every time you scroll, you go down one floor, right?
Yes, exactly. So for all the listeners or people who are watching who don't know what this video is about, we'll put the link in the description so you can check it out. It's on Instagram. And it's basically Hallie talking about the concept of how she imagines social media, how she imagines if you're scrolling, through TikTok or Instagram, you can sort of imagine yourself being in a lift or an elevator, and you're going down. And she actually started calculating the distances of how far you would go down, depending on how many videos you scroll every day. So if you're doom scrolling, you're going all the way down to the Eiffel Tower, Burj Khalifa, or even the Titanic. And then when I watched that video, I was like, holy shit, how can she even think of this? And then I checked the comments, right? So we started stalking that video and then the other videos. And then all of the top comments, almost all of them are about your insane storytelling and your insane creativity. And it's also because I believe that your content resonates with a lot of people, because a lot of people commenting, and Farah, me and you had the exact same reaction. You talk a lot about reality, existence, life, through the content that you create. And I believe that really resonates with people because you make people question reality sometimes. And it's weird because you're doing that through these really sick Blender edits. Like you take green screens, you put yourself in front of it, and then you're putting yourself in all these environments, very similar to how we saw Ian Hubert do it as well. And you do literally similar things, but in a very different style. So I guess what I'm trying to get to here is that you're trying to create really sick, engaging content, but you're also tackling deep topics. And I also like to finish by referring to a book. Me and Farhad love Rick Rubin. And there's a book that he has, which is The Creative Act. And there's this part that he says, this is why when we're struck by a new piece of art, it can resonate on a deeper level. Perhaps this is the familiar coming back to us in an unfamiliar form. Or maybe it is something unknown that we didn't realize we were looking for, a missing piece in a puzzle that has no end. I just feel like when people watch your content, that's what they feel. It feels like this has been something they've been thinking about. For example, the social media doom scrolling, and you just bring it up to the surface. So since people call you super creative, the first question I want to ask you is, what does creativity mean to you?
Ooh, that's a lot to take in right there. What does creativity mean to me? I feel like I don't have a lot of inspiration when it comes to where I'm getting, I don't know where the things I think of really come from, because they don't necessarily come from other artists or other experiences or visuals. It is kind of this place that I can't really describe where it comes from. And I don't know if that's something that like you're just sort of born with that creativity, like if it's something that comes like in your soul. I don't know, but I don't know how to describe like what creativity means to me. Like,
do you feel not creative sometimes? Is there any times that you feel that, oh, I'm not creative, I cannot create, or I don't have idea for that thing? Or it's always
I
there? It's always there.
If she says it's always there, I'm gonna be so jealous.
I mean, like, I think I always have a lot of creative ideas coming in, but like there's not an easy way to kind of sort that stuff out or put it, like, actually materialize it into anything. So it's like almost like, because there's too many ideas, it's a burden to kind of like try and decide what to actually make. Like I kind of get pulled in a lot of different directions, and it's really like it's very difficult to kind of bring it down and get to the hard part of, you know, writing a script and then trying to figure out like what visually is on the screen to kind of put something together and put an idea together, when like there's just so many different ideas. And you know, like as someone on social media, you do kind of have to pick a lane to an extent. Like you can't be all over the place, or you're kind of going to lose that connection with the people that are watching you, because they kind of do expect at least a certain level of the same like genres and themes. And like if you're talking about tech, you kind of have to stay within tech. And I'm all over the place all the time, and that's why it's very hard for me to actually put things down and like put things out, because they have to sort of fit this certain structure. So yeah, it's a lot sometimes.
You know, that's understandable. But Farah, you remember the 30 days challenge that she did? You saw that, right?
30 days making bad videos. She
Yeah.
said that I'm going to make 30 bad videos every day, talking right in front of the camera, reviewing sodas, right?
And what you did for that was you went ahead and created your own sort of supermarket, like there's is that what it is? Supermarket, right? That's what it is. I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, or supermarket or convenience store.
Convenience
So,
store,
yeah, like
right? And you created that in
small,
Blender.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually used Midjourney to generate like just tons of different soda refrigerators, kind of just sorting them in a weird way, because I knew that if I tried to do them individually, I could never get it to have that level of like realism and detail where certain items aren't placed in the perfect place, and kind of have that human element of like people have kind of shifted them and put them in spots that don't necessarily make sense. So I wanted to kind of get that realism quickly, and then used I think it's called Zoe Depth. It's this software that's able to kind of understand like roughly where the different levels of depth in the image are, and sort of extrude it to make it have that three-dimensionality. So I just kind of used that to kind of really quickly build out the space. And then it's really cool because then that way I can sit in different angles of the room, and then light myself in my basement. I have a green screen set up, light it however I'd like, and then just build out the same lighting setup in the store so that I can perfectly blend in with it and kind of feel like I'm actually there. So that was kind of
That's genius.
That's very
That's
interesting.
genius.
But I was thinking, what was the main purpose? Was it really getting good at talking in front of the camera, or using your skill in Blender to create the environment? Because both were, I would say that every day there is a different environment, and every day you're getting better in front of the camera.
Yeah, I think it was a mix of the two things. I've been very, like, getting into YouTube has been very intimidating for me, because it feels like I gotta take that 30-second, highly edited, super conceptual video and now stretch it out for 15 minutes. And that seemed like, when am I ever gonna have like that level of time to put into this long form? So, but at the same time, I realized that I think it's better to at least get your face out there and kind of start trying to have a sort of connection with your audience. And then later you can kind of start bringing in those longer narratives when they already are kind of familiar with you. So that was kind of, it was just a way to kind of push out and make a lot of videos very quickly, and without really thinking too hard about each one or like the quality level of it. But also I can't ever do anything just literally like take out your phone and shoot. I have to add like that element of my world into it.
Yes.
So that was kind of having the convenience store was just a way of giving it a bit more of a theme. And I love soda. Like that's one of my biggest passions. Is like
we realized that after seeing you
After
try
watching-
so many different sodas. Yeah, we realized that.
I'd say like I'm as far as filmmaking and like tech and that world, I'm equally as passionate about candy and soda.
Oh my
so,
god.
I like to.
An unhealthy obsession with sodas. And I realized one of them that we're watching, we were drinking, was it Jones, the blue color soda? And you said that you like the blue color ones because it's the most unnatural and the most weird, which is pretty interesting. But, you know, I just want to tell you that we have something in common, me, you, and Farhad.
We don't like soda though.
No, I'm not talking about sodas. I'm not talking about the Jones sodas.
But I want to know what is the best soda. At least she tried.
Actually, I want to answer that question. But I just wanted to mention one thing. Do you remember how we started our YouTube channel?
Oh, everyday vlog.
Everyday
Everyday
vlog,
vlog.
no matter what. We don't care how cringy it is. We don't care how ugly we look. We don't care that we just woke up. We don't care about our friends' comments, our family's comments. The only way that this could actually work is if we start uploading and editing and putting it up every day. Because there's something special when it's every day. There's, you know, the 24 hours clock. When it resets, you wake up, okay, you got a new task, make the same video. Same video as in same genre of video, but it's, of course, a different story. But you got to make it again. If you make it every other day or once a week, I feel like it just doesn't work. It's like going to the gym. You kind of have to do it every day if you really want to get in shape. And the fact that you also did the 30 days was super interesting to us because a lot of people have this problem of beginning, right? They want to do something. They want to get creative. They want to start Blender. They want to start Unreal. They want to start creating something, but they never just get to it. And I feel like one of the best ways to do it is just saying, okay, you know what? For 20 days, 15 days, whatever it is, right? I'm going to go and do this every day. I want to, because we had a surreal experience, and maybe Farah can talk about it, but from you, since you finished your 30 days about 3 months ago, I want to know what you learned from that 30 days. How was the experience for you, and did it make an impact in your life?
And do you recommend it to others or no?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right about just like lots of people kind of contemplating making a YouTube, and yeah, you just never get to it because you're just overthinking it too much. And that was like the biggest tip I kept finding when like watching other people talk about tips for starting YouTube is just to get like just pick up a camera and upload something, like anything, and it just gets you into it, and like it gets you past that initial feeling of like starting something. So that was the original. I just thought, yeah, like that's exactly what I need to be doing. And I definitely got a lot better at like being comfortable in the silence of having a camera in front of you and you just have to start talking and there's nobody around, and that uncomfortable, weird feeling of talking to a camera as if it's a group of people, or like thinking about who's actually going to be watching it on the other end. And I think I also got better at improvising things to say, because I used to never be the best at just, yeah, like coming up with stories or talking on the spot like that, especially when there's not that much interesting things going on in my life to kind of bring up. Like I to be able to do that every day consistently, obviously there's not a lot of social life or anything happening outside.
I remember it was day 12 or it was day 13 of our vlog days, and we woke up like, okay, what should we do?
What do
today?
we make a video about?
We already made video about gym. We already made video about our food. We already made video about buying coffee.
And we're eating the same thing every day. Like there needs to be something else. But it's like the spark that happens on day 15 or day 17, and then you do something new because you have no fucking choice, and then that turns out to be the thing that you love, and people love too because you see it in the comments. Would you do the 30 days again at any point in your life?
in another genre or in another thing?
I definitely think I would. I almost have been considering getting back into it and just trying to keep doing one every day, or at least maybe doing once a week, because then at least there's more to talk about throughout the week. And yeah, because I really didn't think that anybody would watch those, like, because they are pretty much just me talking to camera with no, like, very little editing, and they aren't very interesting. At least, like, to me, I haven't watched any of them again. But the fact that there is people actually who have said, oh, I watched all of them, like, really? And that's kind of where it is interesting that, like, I guess it didn't take very long for me to put them together. I'd say, like, from recording and then editing and getting them uploaded, it's only about like an hour and a half process, which, yeah, like if people are actually interested in that and that's a way to make a connection, I'd love to kind of continue to do that, or maybe do it in a different way. But that the concept of the convenience store is actually something that I'm planning on, like, expanding further and kind of talking about a lot more. And I think it's kind of interesting, this idea of how when you're on the internet, that, like, the world you build out around who you are online becomes what the viewer knows of you. And if you do appear in a place like a convenience store every day, it kind of makes you start to think, like, yeah, this person actually does live there, or it exists there. And I kind of love that concept. Like, I love the idea of the self I am online getting to live this entire different world, like, in like a different reality from mine. And that if I leave a lot of details of my actual personal life out of it, that becomes the character. And she's way cooler than me, and her, like, where she lives seems way cooler than where I live. And
in a convenience store
Yeah.
that has some really sick sodas.
I think if she continues until day 90, probably a soda will sponsor her. Soda company will sponsor her and
Absolutely.
ask her for reviews.
It will happen. It will happen.
It's crazy how many soda and beverage companies have already reached out.
Oh,
just
really?
Like, not off YouTube. Yeah, but, like, off that, like, the one or two videos on Instagram where I talk about doing the YouTube channel, like, and there's that one video where I just did a compilation of me holding them. Like, at least, like, 4 or 5 in the last, like, 2 weeks.
Dude, that is that's crazy. I mean, it happens.
It makes sense.
It makes a lot of
though.
sense. I
Yeah.
mean, now I think it's a no-brainer. I believe everybody's aware of this. When you create content about a certain object, anybody who creates that object, that product, will usually contact you. It's common. It's like manifestation. We talked about this, right? You talk about something multiple times. It's very likely, if your content is growing, that somebody will reach out to you. And I mean, I didn't think the 30 days will work that fast, but it's crazy. I mean, it of course goes hand in hand with the amazing stuff that you're producing at the same time on Instagram, because I believe those two types of content are relatively different from each other, right? On Instagram, you got something super curated. It's all scripted in a way, and you're editing it quite heavily. Whereas on YouTube, like you mentioned, you're going in front of the camera and you're basically improvising, and both of them are amazing, right? In a way, like you mentioned, in the convenience store, the convenience store Hallie, right, which I'm guessing is slightly different than the real life one. I believe it's more like the real life one than the Hallie on Instagram, if you get what I mean.
How many Hallies do we have?
Multiple. And I'm referring to her own content, by the way. She has a video. Wait. I'm trying to find the video. Hold on. Which version is more real? That's the video that you made, which is precisely talking about the same thing. She was talking about, if you're creating an online persona, right, and you are living that life for everybody else that is viewing you, then technically, and you're spending most of your time online, then technically, is that person more real, or the one sitting at home and posting about it?
Yeah, it's always been a struggle for me, especially, like, looking at other creators that I like and trying to understand who they are based on their online version. And then maybe you'll know them for years online and then meet the real version of them, and it's a completely different person. And you do kind of have to divide that, yeah, like, actually that person that I've known of you for so long is just a character in their own world, and you are your own person. But it's kind of difficult to stay grounded that you aren't that person, and that person is just like a digital, it's not real, and it doesn't deserve the amount of, like, it doesn't deserve to live at the expense of your own health, like, of the real version. And I found I get into that trap of just spending so much time taking care of that person and building out their world that I'm just in my PJs all day, like waking up thinking about them and building out videos for them. Like, it's very interesting.
Real quick, Did you know that there's an app on your phone called Polycam that lets you take giant environments and turn them into photorealistic 3D scenes? You don't believe me, do you? We're talking as giant as Burj Al Arab.
We wanted to recreate Burj Al Arab, so we literally went around it, scanned it using our phone and Polycam, brought it into Unreal Engine, and made this video. This tech is called Gaussian splatting, and it's unbelievable.
This is just one of the cool things that we use Polycam for in our workflow, and there are thousands of people just like us taking in large environments and objects into their 3D scenes. I mean, just check this out. We got a city, we got like a castle, like a car. This is crazy. Now, we use Polycam in our videos all the time, and so we decided to talk to them to see if we can get you guys, the Bad Decisions fam, a sweet deal. And guess what? Right now, you can go to Polycam, sign up for a free account, and try to create your splats. But you'll have a 150 photo limit or a 3-minute video limit.
If you go pro, however, you can take up to 1,000 photos and 15-minute long videos. That means higher quality and accuracy in your captures and bigger environments.
To go pro, you need to pay these amounts monthly or yearly. But if you go ahead and write the name Bad Decisions in the promo code tab,
you get 30% off, baby.
link in the description. Let's get back into the pod.
What is your process like when you want to create? So now we talked about your YouTube and of course your Instagram, but I think the focus is more about the videos that you create and it gets a lot of engagement. How long time you spend on scripting, how long time you spend on recording, editing, and which part is your favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think the thing with the videos that I create, I find that if I'm not learning a new skill, like if there's not some kind of challenge of something that I've never touched before, it's very hard for me to complete it because it just feels like I'm just repeating the same thing over and there's no challenge behind it. But at the same time, that can be detrimental to getting things out in a timely manner because I'm choosing to do something where there's going to actually be like a lot of troubleshooting that I'm not accounting for when I'm thinking, okay, this seems like something that's doable in a week based on my one watch of the YouTube video on how to do that thing.
Yeah.
And not necessarily knowing, like having the knowledge of what goes into it. And the thing is that like that's the only way that the video feels satisfying at the end of the day is if like I'm, like, oh, I want to play around with Luma and create some like a Gaussian splat and incorporated that into a transition. And that's the exciting part about the video to me is like, okay, how am I going to incorporate this in? What are those shots going to look like? Like, how is it going to work? But then like, okay, I guess I'll have to use, like, I'll use Unreal Engine for this, but like, I don't even actually have that much knowledge in Unreal Engine to be able to put that in and then like matching it up with real live video. And that's the part that gets me really excited.
Yep.
And I'll also have like the concept of it, like say it is the elevator, or like I had that one that I did that was about dating apps and trying to find love in the digital world.
The million of cats.
And
millions of cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that one took way longer than I thought it would, just because of the amount of things I was trying to incorporate in that I'd never tried before. But it's only because of all those pieces that I learned along the way that I think it was so satisfying to complete it, and like that's what kept driving me to keep going with it. But yeah, that was like I think 2 weeks of scripts, just because of how like I was trying to relate it back to that book, and then 3 weeks nonstop of editing, like to get it how I wanted it to look.
Wow. 2 weeks of scripting, 3 weeks of editing. How long did it take to record the whole thing?
Recording actually wasn't that like a day, because it's really only that initial shot where I'm in it, and then there's a couple throughout where like I walk up and have to meet the cat for coffee.
Yes.
And
do you mind, by the way, do you mind telling that story? If you remember, do you mind telling that story to the guys and girls who are listening in case they are not aware of it?
For sure, yeah. So one of my favorite books as a kid was this book called I think it's millions of cats.
Yes.
It's a 1920s children's book. I think it's actually one of the oldest, oldest books still being printed for children.
Wow.
Like it's actually it's very interesting how that book still exists today, and still you can still go buy it in a Barnes and Noble's on the shelf. So it's a classic. But the story is that this man, him and his wife live alone in the countryside, and the woman was saying that how she feels lonely and that he should go find them a cat to keep them company. And he travels a long, long way until he comes across this field of millions and billions and trillions of cats. And I didn't even know they used the word trillion in the 1920s. That's pretty impressive. What in the 1920s did they have a trillion of?
Yeah, I don't think anything.
But he comes across this field, and he's deciding he'll pick out the prettiest cat and take it home with him. So he finds one, and it's it's white and blue eyes and very pretty. And then he was looking over there, and there's one that's all black, and that one's also equally as pretty as this one. And so he just keeps taking more, collecting them all, until he has chosen every single cat, millions and billions of trillions of cats, and he tries to take all of them home. And obviously that they eat them out of house and home, and that's kind of as far as the analogy makes sense, because at the end, I guess they ask the cats to which one's the prettiest, and they all fight to the death.
Oh my god.
It's kind of dark.
Yeah, you didn't include that in the video, I think.
Yeah, well, I guess it doesn't. It sort of gets a little messy there as to
Right.
the analogy I was trying to make, just about how today with dating apps and even just social media in general, we're exposed to so many more people. We are aware of how many beautiful, interesting humans are out in the world, compared to previously where, pre-internet, you'd just be aware of the people around you in your community. That's sort of your pool of people, and that was your perception of the world. Whereas now we just have infinite people to look at. And I find it can be very challenging, especially with dating apps, where you are just kind of, you are trying to make assumptions of people just based off a few images and a few prompts. And you do have to kind of have this very surface level judgment of the people that you're looking at. And it can just be very, very skewed as to how you can settle on someone when you're constantly exposed to all these different people, and you're always thinking, what if there's a better person out there for me? And just the challenges of that. So I kind of made this connection to that book being also just a way as well, when I was first trying to come up with the concept for this, where it did come from dating apps and the challenges of finding someone, but I didn't want to gender it. I didn't want to make the video where I'm talking about men or it being about women, or having to kind of bring that into it. So eliminating everything and just making it about cats.
Yeah.
Wow,
replacing
that was so
cat.
genius.
That was a good idea.
And now everybody could
Yeah,
relate, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your sexual preference is or anything. It could just be.
It could be cats.
Just a cat. Yeah. And then I think that was that connection back to the book, that it came together so perfect, and I don't think anything I've made has been quite as perfect as that. But yeah.
Just about that book, because I got 2 points I want to talk about, but the first one I want to talk about is when I was watching it, although you were referring to dating, what I was thinking about and how it resonated with me was about just social media and content in general. Again, going back to creativity and how people might not start their journey or ever start creating because they're always looking at all of the options available. They're always looking at everybody else's content and just thinking about how everybody's perfect. And they're just seeing millions of pieces of content throughout weeks or months. And then they're always judging themselves, so they can never actually find the perfect way to begin. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but when you talked about that book, I was like, okay, I can actually relate it to content as well, because a lot of people will see, You guys know what I'm talking about, right? All the different kinds of content, and it's hard for you to begin because you're comparing yourself to all these.
Especially you're comparing your now day 0 to someone at day 1000. You're
Yes.
looking at Mr. Beast, or if you want to do vlog, you look at Casey Neistat, and why am I like him?
Yes.
So you keep comparing yourself for someone who has worked on it for 10 years. That's why you never start.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a young creative person trying to start out today with like that much inspiration in front of you. And like I think about that a lot with just when I was growing up, like Instagram, I think Instagram was around when I was like 12. I had an Instagram account, which I'd probably the first generation that
Instagram
didn't
user.
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was out there at the time was just pretty much just people's friends and like very much just true social media content, not creative content. There were very few dedicated photography accounts or like dedicated art accounts to look at and to be inspired by. So it really, you did just have to pull it out of wherever else, or like books, or you're still kind of coming from that place. But I can't imagine now you're trying to get into graphic design. You have infinite resources, and that can either be a good thing, like you get inspired quicker and you can kind of get to a place quicker than I could have back when with what resources I had. But at the same time, yeah, I can't imagine trying to judge yourself against so many different people all the time.
I mean that does kind of fuck with me sometimes. I don't know about you guys. I try my very best to block it out. And I think the way I've been doing that is just not being on social media all the time. I basically get on just to upload, engage with the comments, and then I'm off creating, just like Farhad. I think you're pretty much the same as me. I believe before, however, when I just looked at other people's work all the time, it was quite difficult just because I was comparing it to myself every single time I saw it. And usually people are always, curating their profiles to be their best work, their best self. And that's always quite hard to look at if you're not doing very well, which I don't think anybody is. If you're just starting out, it's almost impossible to be perfect when you're starting out. So that's why for me it was difficult. Does it ever get hard for you, or is there any way you deal with this if it does?
Yeah, I don't have Instagram or TikTok on my phone ever. Like I just use the desktop version.
What? Really?
And, like I'll sometimes download it on my phone to put something out where like I want to be very careful with how it's looking on mobile. But aside from that, yeah, no TikTok, no Instagram. I can't.
Wow. That I just
True meaning
way
of
too
creator.
overwhelming.
No
is
consumption, just creating. Wow.
I mean, I thought you would definitely have some solution for this, but I didn't know you wouldn't actually have the app.
That is a solution. Remove the app.
Should we do it? That's crazy. Wait, how long has it been since you've deleted the app?
Like completely, like where I like because I do download it.
No. I mean
delete it,
generally,
immediately after.
I understand that, but I mean generally not being on the app, consuming.
At least about a year and a half, I'd say, where I just don't. Like my dad developed a TikTok addiction, and that was a very interesting thing to just see how much time he was spending on it, and it just felt very. It was a reflection on how much time I must be spending, because you can see someone else wasting their life on there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of when I just thought, I need to cut this out. Like the amount of more productivity you can have and time to actually like sit with your own ideas is so rewarding compared to spending it on there. Because I think I mentally thought that like while I was looking on there, that was giving me creative inspiration or motivating me to go create, but I think it was sort of just doing the opposite, where you just as much get addicted to looking at art, and you can kind of trick yourself into thinking that that's research.
Yeah.
But it never ends. Like there's just a never ending amount, so you're never gonna kind of find the perfect thing to inspire you. So yeah, I get way too overwhelmed by just how many new things are coming out as well. Like I think YouTube's a bit better, where you click on one thing and then you're watching like to a pretty deep level of to how to do something. Like that's why I love watching your guys' videos, because it's at least kind of very focused. Whereas Instagram, you're just getting like little tiny snippets of the potential of different apps and applications, and it's just like, how do I absorb all this? How am I gonna?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, even now there's this new trend, that I'm falling in love with, the viewport shader versus the render, and then they just like boop go to from the viewport to the render, and I'm always like looking at it. I'm like, I want to see what the render looks like, and I'm there 5 seconds, and then the next one. Instagram has gotten super good at fixing their algorithm up in like a day. When you really like a video, it just spits
Gives
at
you like
you
hundreds of them tomorrow.
thousands of those same type of videos, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna be here for a while now. But I want to ask both of you a question, because this is super crazy. I feel like Instagram is such a privilege to me personally, and I'm sure you would agree with this, because this is the place where we go and share our art, our creativity, and it's where we can engage with everybody, for example, listening and watching right now. I wouldn't think there would be any other way to be able to have this communication. And that's why I'm really thankful to have it. But at the same time, you see how scary it is if you're just a little over the line, a little over like too addicted, or just spending a little too much time there. It can mean that you become a completely different person. Instead of creating, then you're just consuming. And that could not be a very healthy life to live. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I'll let Hallie say it first. I have my own opinion.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like especially that I had mentioned before, I went to this creator camp where it is just a bunch of random strangers from the internet that are all in a similar place creatively online and coming together and getting to meet people like that. And I think a lot about how it's only because of things I've put into the world on social media that has made it possible for me to get to hang around such interesting people, and how that's so amazing to just be able to put so much energy and creativity into my work, and for that to kind of pay back in a better life off the internet, like a better social life, getting to kind of connect with people I would never be around otherwise and would never know who I was. And just that's so beautiful. But it's also, the other side of it is just that I don't want to be consuming all the time, but I do want to be connecting.
Yeah.
And there isn't really a good balance to strike with that. And I think I get the reputation for being like, I never answer texts or DMs because like I do have to go on my laptop and like look through them like that, and it's hard to remember because it's like very unnatural to be like typing a DM out, but that's kind of on purpose for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So
for me, I've been creator for is it 2 years now, 1
Yes.
year and a half, and then I was a consumer for a very long time. But I of course, I'm really enjoying my time being a creator. Of course, the opportunities are endless. Get to do things that I love, doing this podcast. But even consuming, I'm thinking a word without consumption of social media is a very scary word. Without knowledge, without the things that you can learn. Of course, you can learn bad things. But for me, like just listening to podcasts, Andrew Huberman podcast, that was something that probably changed my life. The things that I thought for 25 years that were true
are untrue.
They are all lies, and
Yes.
they are not facts. So I think there are, again, if you can control your consumption is not that bad. And if you can, make sure you are directing it to the right way. But I mean, TikTok is very scary. The moment you look at it, okay, I will do it for 30 seconds. Oh my God, 3 hours. So yeah,
I think it's all about self-control at the end of the day, right? But that's the hardest skill to learn. Like, how can you go on YouTube? Even YouTube now, honestly, I mean, even YouTube.
X, bro, even X is difficult to get out.
Everywhere. It's just the algorithms are so good now. I'm going to talk about my experience on YouTube. You can maybe talk about X, but YouTube, the thumbnails are now so perfectly done. And again, every single time I'm looking at one Unreal video, again, Unreal is good, right? But then I'm supposed to be doing work, and I'm like, I have 8 tutorials open, and I'm like, holy shit, I haven't finished my work yet. I'm just watching tutorials. Just like how Hallie was talking, like at some point, yes, it's research, but then after a point, you're like, okay, I'm just addicted to watching tutorials. tutorials.
I have a PhD in research of
Unreal Engine tutorials.
I haven't
done
done any
anything
project
yet.
you created? Zero. But I know how to create all of them now.
Theoretically, I know everything.
What I would really love to know is I want to take it a little bit back
Yes.
because now you're a filmmaker, VFX artist, of course, using Blender, Unreal, but you started as a photographer, if I'm not mistaken. I want to know, how did that journey started? Even before photography, how did you get into all of this? And then how did you transition from photography? I don't know, you still do photography, I think sometimes, but then how did you got to know Blender and then started VFX?
Yeah, it was a pretty much full lifelong journey of creative things. Like I think my dad, he had a film camera and he'd take pictures of us growing up, and I was always just very fascinated by photography through him. When I was, I think maybe 7, he got me one of those little point and shoot waterproof, like DSLR, or not DSLR, but you know, like the tiny little ones that they can fit in your pocket, but they are digital cameras. And I'd bring that to school with me every day because I could kind of hide it. And I'd take pictures of my friends and things at research and at recess. And I became kind of like that person that just took pictures. I'd take them home and I had like a Photoshop's Elements 8 or 7 on disc that I'd use to kind of edit it and pull up the saturation all the way and do like those crazy edits back then, like pre Instagram. And then I guess when Instagram came out, obviously like that was like a perfect place that now I could put them out and share them with people without actually having to like print them out and make people look at them, or
Yes.
because like at that point they weren't going anywhere. I just had this collection of portraits and different pictures of people, and like you know that classic one in early Instagram where you put all your shoes in a circle and you make like a star.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That kind of those kind of photos. And then I think grade like early, like maybe I was 13 or 14, I bought a DSLR camera and started kind of taking it more seriously. I think it was a Rebel T3i, and I used that camera for a really long time, just taking more self-portrait work and just trying to develop a style to some extent and play around with Photoshop. Like I loved being able to take photos that I could later manipulate in different ways. Like I love that. I don't know if you've seen that kind of fake infrared effect where you take all the greens of an image and you take all the saturation out, so it almost looks like the world is ice.
I think
So
I've seen
like
that.
that
I
kind
think
of
I've
stuff.
seen that.
Yeah, I just love like early Photoshop effects I was really into that. And there was this school in Toronto, it's called OCAD, like Ontario College of Art and Design, and the building itself is like out of a cartoon. It's like a Minecraft cube, like black and white cow
What?
on these pencil crayons, and it's sort of suspended in the air. Like it's like a black and white giant cube, and these colorful pencils just sort of point into it, and it sits up above the other buildings. And as a child, like I came to Toronto a lot because my family was here. Even at like 8 years old, I saw this building and I knew it was an art school, and I knew like one day I'll have to go to college and I want to do something in art, and like that's the school I'm going to go to. And I think that kind of that dream kind of really pushed me in that direction of like, I definitely want to do something creative, but my family comes from, engineers and sort of academic background, so it'll have to be something creative that also makes money. Like I kind of knew that I couldn't be a painter or just a straight photographer. I didn't really understand how that could be a job, but I knew I was going to go to that school and I was going to get in there somehow. And
Did you? I'm really curious if you did.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
I even got like in on scholarship and everything, and
Awesome.
I only ended up going there for a year and a half though, sadly.
No, but it's okay. You still fulfilled the dream. That's what matters.
Yeah, I think there was no way I wasn't gonna go there at that point. But yeah, I think the way I really got into photography as like something that felt more like it could potentially be a career was in high school. I wasn't that cool of a kid, you know, and there's just all these cool kids, and I wanted to kind of. I wasn't bullied in high school, but it was sort of just like I was sort of outcasted for being a little weird. And to get back at those boys that made me feel that way, I thought it would be really funny to become a concert photographer, and when they were downtown watching their favorite artists, I'd be up on stage, you know, just
That's a cool way to get back at them. That is a cool way to get back at them.
It's very spiteful, but I'd seen the photographers, you know, like in the pit, and I was thinking, like, how hard would it actually be to get that job? And out in Vancouver, there really isn't that many venues, and there's not that much media.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big city as far as competition. So I just started researching and emailing pretty much every media outlet that could potentially kind of get me a press pass to be at those shows. And eventually it worked that I got this very small job doing concert photography for this, I think it was like two college sisters that had a music blog, like where they did reviews, and then they'd have photographers shoot the concert with the written review. So I just signed up for pretty much any possible one that I knew like these guys would be at.
Oh my god!
And I'd go down.
You know,
I definitely had my moment though.
I want you to continue that, but I just want to say how emotions, we talked about this before, how emotions can be a fantastic vehicle to push you, good or bad emotions. We're talking about anger here, right? Like you were angry at the boys, and just because you wanted to get back at them, that pushed you to go and actually find your passion, right? I mean, this is probably one of the stepping stones, one of the stairs that you had to go through to get to where you are today. That is crazy. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, no, I think I'm a big believer in spite being the biggest motivator for any pursuit. And it isn't the best, like it's a negative emotion, but
Yes.
it can lead to a lot of powerful changes, like for a positive ending, I find. Like that's at least for me in my life. But yeah, I think I shot maybe like 20 different concerts in the span of 5 months or so. At that time, like something crazy like that, where I was going almost like twice a week downtown. Like I lived out in the suburbs of Vancouver, but I'd go downtown, or I'd get my dad to drive me down. I think I was 15, 16 at the time, so couldn't
Going to all
drive
these
down.
concerts
And this
at
was like
15,
late.
that sounds like a fun job too, you know.
That sounds really fun, actually. Were the guys at any of them? Did they eventually see you?
I did have a couple moments where like I'd be on the SkyTrain going downtown, and you'd see them also on them there, and they'd be like, "Oh, are you going to the show?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm shooting the show." And that impressed them.
That is good. That's good.
I remember one moment where like there's this girl. I played rep soccer, and a lot of the girls on the team didn't like me for some reason. I don't know if I was just a little too competitive, but her and her boyfriend were on the SkyTrain, and he was just so impressed by the fact I was gonna shoot it. I think it was a Post Malone concert, and you could just tell how jealous she was.
We're gonna, what's her name? We're gonna send her a link to this podcast after this episode. Have her watch.
I'm gonna clip this part.
I don't know who you are, but in your face. Just saying, she got to shoot Post Malone. Sorry, I got a little too excited. Please continue.
It was pretty insane at the time, especially just Vancouver. That was kind of the top. Like there wasn't really anywhere more you could go with concert photography or photography in general. But I moved to Toronto very abruptly when I was 16. So I kind of had to sort of just abandon all of these connections I was building out in Vancouver to move across the country. My dad, he was battling cancer for a long time, and they tried a lot of different things, and it kind of got to the point where if this last thing doesn't work, you only have maybe 14 months. And it had happened that he we tried everything, and it was sort of that, okay, you have 14 months to live. He's still alive today though, so I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna say that now because
I'm
Yeah,
happy to
he's-
hear that. I'm happy to hear that. I'm so sorry. It must have been extremely difficult to go through. I cannot imagine what that was like.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a very hard time at the time, especially kind of having like not necessarily that your parent just passes away suddenly, but like an expiry date on a parent because you're kind of grieving in advance because you're not really sure what's going to happen after that. But he was a single dad, and me and my brother, like I have a younger brother, we live with him in Vancouver, but we didn't have a lot of family out there, so we thought like the best option was we were going to move across the country to Toronto to live with his parents, like my grandparents, and that's actually where I am right now. Is this my grandparents' house? But so he was gonna we were gonna live with them, and then when he passed away, they'd be our guardians moving forward. So that was kind of how that happened. And since I didn't really have any of that concert connections anymore, I kind of took to Instagram to try and really just make as many connections with people in Toronto as possible. And at this point, I kind of shifted from doing like concert photography as my main thing on the platform. I kind of shifted into playing around with neon lights, like the those LED light strips that you see in like pretty much every
Yes.
teenager's room these days.
Yes.
Those things only became popular in like 2020, I think.
Yes.
But previously to that, though, they weren't that accessible. Like they weren't a thing that you saw a lot. And I think I'd gotten a pair, like a set of them when I was 16 in Vancouver, like from Costco or something, like very early version of them. And I'd use just two different colors, like stick them places and take portraits and different photos in that lighting. And I loved how it looked, like I still do to this day. But back then I was thinking like a way to kind of stand out on Instagram would be, what if I just I double down on this lighting style and every single photo I post just be drenched in color, like make this like very assaulting to your eyes Instagram feed, and just that be my thing, so that I could kind of position as like the neon photographer. So as a 16-year-old, that was my strategy. I was just gonna like everything I post is gonna look like this, and I'm gonna have this crazy feed, and then I'll reach out to people all over the city and just say like, hey, I'd love to take your portrait and like just shoot with you, and just try and make a connection that way, because everybody really liked that lighting at the time. Like it was a very unique thing to have a picture taken like that. So that was kind of the strategy. And within the first year of living in Toronto, I had already kind of connected really strongly with like the music industry people, like a lot of different managers and DJs, and like I lit this like very little video for Lil Yachty one time when he was in town.
What? Really?
Like with just like random, yeah, like random light, like Home Depot lamps and those LED strips. And that was all just through like Instagram, knowing some people, and they wanted that lighting style, and they're like, oh, I know the perfect person. And
their
it's just
feed
me,
is
this
their
kid.
feed is assaulting my eyes with that style.
I want to just talk about something since we're here. You talked about cutting everything off in Vancouver and then moving to Toronto and starting from scratch, starting from zero again, and making connections and trying to find work. This is a very familiar environment for me and Faros. So we did that, I think, 4 or 5 times in our life, and we got so used to it now. And it's kind of scary, risky, and I would say uncertain when you're doing it. So we were born in Iran. We moved to Malaysia. So we cut everything, cut friends, everything. We moved to Malaysia. From Malaysia, we moved to Canada. So again, cut friends, cut job, everything, start again. And then a few months ago, we came to Dubai. How did you, and I know how uncertain it feels when you do cut all the connection. How did it feel the first weeks or first month in Toronto when you were looking for all these connections?
I mean, I think I can give Instagram so much credit for just being a perfect place to stalk people, like to an extent, because you can really quickly find, okay, like this photographer seems to be a prominent person who are their friends or who are they shooting with, kind of go and look at their profiles, and again find out like who their closest friends are, go through there, and just sort of just start following people. And the fact that I had sort of a very distinctive profile, I think that really helped with it, is just that it is like, who is this strange account with all this color? And it was really interesting to be able to kind of just use that as like a card, or like a business card of sorts, to just get the attention without actually having to say anything, just like through their own natural discovery of the page. Like all I really had to do was follow them, like a couple pictures, and then at some point you have enough people in that community that follow you back, that now you gain that sort of that trust from other people, because it's like, oh, I have so many mutuals with this person, and you can very quickly grow where you don't actually have to know or talk to anybody, but you can kind of get your foot in the door in that way. And I find, like, especially being young and kind of being able to use that as an angle as well, of just being like, I'm just starting out, I love the experience, like I'm not looking to make money, like I didn't have a lot to lose at the time, so I was just taking any opportunity that came to me. And I think people also love to feel like they can mentor someone or help somebody at a lower level when they've kind of already gone through those hurdles, like they can respect the hustle of it. So I think that was really what made it a lot easier at the time, was like just that willingness to do anything and haul all this equipment out to wherever. And it, like, I don't get me wrong though, I think it was very challenging in those early days where you were taking the opportunity and they kind of knew you were just a small photographer, and they could kind of take advantage of that. Like I did a lot of waiting around, like in my car for a text message. Like they said we were going to meet at 12, but I get there, it's 12, nothing, like radio silence for 2 hours, and I just have to kind of wait around, and then finally you get a text message and it's like, meet at this place, and you got to go there. And it was a lot of just hanging out by myself in my car waiting on people. But it worked out in the end.
And then what happened after that? So when you were in Toronto, you started getting some contacts, and I'm only comparing this to where you are now. Of course, I do not know what year this is. I just want to know how then you started, as Farhad asked earlier, started learning Blender and got into VFX eventually.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how everything shifted, because at that point I didn't expect to ever go into filmmaking. Like I had no real interest in doing motion. I was just interested in photography, and kind of like I always loved drawing and painting, so this felt like a sort of a level up from that, where you could bring the real world into art and manipulate images to kind of create worlds, but only 2D worlds. I was never really that interested in filmmaking at the time. But I had this, while I was in my last year of high school, I thought it would be really cool. I think this came from some place of spite as well, but I wanted to shoot with Nike. Like I was like, okay, and I knew that they were that their headquarters was in Toronto, like for Canada. So I was able to figure out from like the rappers that I knew where they were getting their shoes from, like what that contact was. And I just started messaging those people on Instagram, and sending them pictures of Nikes that I'd shot in like that colorful lighting. So I'd shoot a bunch of photos like that, like as creative as I could get, and just send it and be like, hey, if you ever need a photographer, you know, like I'm around.
Wow.
And
So
how many times did you do that?
at least like 5 or 6 times I just bother them with images. And after about, I think maybe like only about 6 months, it came around the time to do the Air Max Day. It's in March. So that year of my like senior year of high school, in March, they contacted me and they were like, hey, would you like to shoot and creative direct the Air Max Day campaign for all of Toronto?
Oh my
And
God.
it was pretty insane, because that would have been my very first client work as a photographer at the time.
no way.
The first client
Yeah,
work
I don't think
with Nike, like, and it's with Nike. Are you kidding me?
Wow, but that has built up all those waiting and hanging in the car by herself,
Yes.
carrying the things around, sending
Yes.
DMs. Wow.
Yeah, that shoot was pretty insane. They had us shoot. They wanted to shoot in iconic locations in Toronto, but like iconic to Toronto locals, not necessarily like the CN Tower kind of iconic. But so we shot in the Eden Center, which is like this mall, and there's this crazy bridge that kind of goes across the street. So we shot in there, and we shot at this sort of dome. It's called the Cinesphere, which they show movies and things in there. And we brought all the shots together into this sort of collage thing where the models would sort of jump and do the same actions in each location, and then we'd chop chunks from each spot so that they kind of had this mosaic look to them. So it was a cool campaign, but I had no idea what I was doing. And like they made me they asked me what type of lights I needed to rent, and I'd never rented professional equipment. So
Only
it
Costco
was just-
lights up until this
Can you
moment.
Yeah,
go to
that's all I
Home Depot
know.
and get...
What did you do then?
I managed to find somewhere that sold like the sky panel lights that can do RGB. So I just thought, okay, like that's the professional equivalent to Home Depot with like a gel on top. Because I knew I had to rent professional equipment. I couldn't just bring my own stuff. But they also didn't really know. They were looking to me for what I needed and like what kind of equipment and what kind of team. And obviously I never worked with a team and I never used that kind of equipment. So it really was just me, and I brought my boyfriend at the time as like a BTS photographer. And then they had one guy who was there to shoot BTS like videography for like the Nike campaign. And it was just the three of us and all this lighting equipment, and we had to set it up because I didn't think about having to have people there that would help set up. So we were out, it was windy and cold, and we're using like these few sandbags we had to keep these things up and trying to like assemble them in the dark. So the three of us really bonded over trying to get this equipment to work. And I think the BTS videographer guy, he overheard at one point, one of the Nike guys came up to me with a contract and was like, "Hey, you turned 18 just in time to sign it yourself."
Oh my god!
And
what?
And this guy overheard that, and I guess that was like he had no idea how young I was, and he was just really like impressed by that. And he turned out to be the executive assistant to this guy, Director X, who's this big.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
Director
yes.
X is
Yeah.
super good.
He's
Yeah.
super good, yeah.
You used to
He'd
call me on
he's
my
just like
cell
a-
phone. He
Yeah,
directed
that's
that, like
right.
that infamous Drake
Yeah.
music video. Holy shit! Okay.
Yeah, he's done like quite a lot of like Drake videos, but then he's been an OG director for a long time. Like all the hits throughout the 2000s, I feel like
Yes.
so many of those he's behind the videos for. So their headquarters, like their little office for their production company, like Director X's production company, is in Toronto. It's actually right across the street from OCAD, that school that I was at. So they were like, "Hey, like you should come by for a tour. Like we'll show you around sometime." So when I had gone to university, like I was still in high school at this time, so I waited until I was downtown going to school, and I took them up on that offer to go look at their office. And they showed me around. I got to meet everybody, and then they were like, "Have you ever considered doing motion? Like we love your photography work. Have you thought about directing?" And like I said, I'd never thought about directing just because it felt like way too much of a dream job, like never gonna happen kind of thing. And I was very realistic about my career. So but obviously I like as an 18-year-old, you're not gonna say no. So they asked if I had any video work, and the only thing I could think of to show them was this student film that I'd done in my 12th grade,
Oh
like
god.
senior
God.
final film class. And because that was the only thing on YouTube, and it's this video that me and my boyfriend at the time we collaborated on, where this guy gets initiated into this cult in a basement, but it's like a milk cult where they all just are down there drinking milk out of champagne glasses, and then there's like two guys in the bathtub full of milk, and then they go into this last room, and everybody's in a circle on the ground, like they're all sitting
Like
in
a
a circle,
cult, yeah?
and the guy has to come in. the guy has to come into the middle, and they hand him like a bag of milk. You know, like in Canada we have bagged milk. So he hands in the bag of milk and a knife, and he's got to like shotgun the bag of milk and like drink it all in one go. And it's like spraying everywhere and like hitting the walls and everybody, and and the video just kind of ends on him like just getting drowned in the milk.
Is the video still up on YouTube?
I think my friend, I think they took it down.
Oh
like, I was
no!
trying to
Come
find it recently.
on, Hallie,
I'm gonna go and watch it after the podcast.
Is it unlisted or something? We gotta list it up again.
Yeah, I'll try and see if I can find it. But
You know, just before you
It's not
continue,
very
by the way,
good.
just before you continue, by the way, I know it sounds like funny when you talk about it, but that is precisely the kind of creativity that people look for in directors. Like, you want to think outside the box and do crazy things like that. If you were to do the same kind of videos everybody else would, then it wouldn't be so special. But yeah, I mean, we were laughing about it, but it's actually quite creative. So
Especially for grade 12.
yes.
yeah, it was like very crazy and actually kind of technically complicated because the whole thing is a one take. Like, there's some hidden cuts, but the whole thing looks like there's no cuts. Like, it's like one long shot. And I think that was also, like, that was my part that I kind of added in. I think my boyfriend kind of wrote the original script, and then we kind of collaborated on bringing it all together. But it was very weird, and I don't know, like, that was all I could show. I was just kind of panicking. I showed them that, and they watched that, and they were like, well, you're definitely a filmmaker. and and actually, like, it was only maybe about a month after that they wanted to bring me on as their junior director, and I was on the roster, like Director X at the top, and they got all their directors, and there's my name on their website.
Wow.
Even though I had absolutely no like portfolio to show on my page there. They just had like the Nike campaign stills as kind of like the only thing they could show. And I started to write like a lot of treatments, like a lot of video kind of come in. Like, kind of the way that music videos work is that the label comes with a budget and they have the song, and they kind of get different production companies to choose whoever directs, to pitch a concept, like one of the directors at least to pitch one, and then they choose from a pool of, maybe 10 different director concepts, and then they to pick to shoot the video concept. So I didn't get very many. Like, I think I did 5 throughout the year that I was there, but they're just for very unknown artists, and they're not like, they're very music videos. Like, they don't really feel like they reflect my creative style that much, so I don't really talk about them or show them anywhere. But they had like decent budgets though for being just my first things ever. I think like $30,000 to $50,000 budgets for these videos. So you had a full crew and a location, and it was very much like a really good experience to understand how a film crew worked, like how to direct an entire set and understand like the scheduling and the timing of everything. So I got all that knowledge very quickly, like crash course on
That's
that, because
awesome.
they just threw me into that.
What was like,
Yeah.
I'm just curious in the middle of that, what's like an average budget for a music video? Do you know, like, from the time you spend there?
It really depends on what level you're at, because there is like so many artists that are making videos for $1,000, $2,000, and that's enough to make something great. But then at a level like this, like being Director X's production company, people they're expecting the standard of Hotline Bling.
Yes.
So when they come to that company, their budget ranges are a lot higher, just because even for a lower budget video, they still want to kind of keep it up to like a certain quality level. So I'd say they probably wouldn't take anything under 30 at the very low end, and that was sort of more, they were accepting those for me, trying to just get me in the door and making something.
Right.
Because I don't think they were even taking a cut or anything off that. That was just like what it costed to make the video at the bare minimum.
Okay.
But I think that's the that's the lower end, because you're still looking at like the higher end camera kit and a pretty solid level of crew. Like I'd say maybe about 30 people on that crew. So
Wow.
for a day or a 2-day shoot, that goes quick.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that? So you did 4 or 5 music videos, and did you leave that company?
Well, that's where COVID hit right then. So I think I was like 19 and COVID happened, and it kind of got in the way of all of that because, yeah, like obviously everything was shut down. You couldn't do those low end productions anymore because even when productions kind of came back, you needed a certain percentage of the budget just for COVID protocol safety.
Oh, God.
And I think it was like 30% of the budget had to go towards like everyone getting tested and somebody on site to do the testing, and that just ate away so much of the budget that there just wasn't any room for those lower end ones anymore. Like you had to at least maybe be working with like $100K to allocate enough off for that to still have enough to make it. And yeah, so I just, there wasn't anything coming in. I think I wrote a few more treatments for Director X at the time, like just behind the scenes helping with concepts for that. But then it kind of just trickled off. It fizzled out, I guess, because COVID was sort of in the way. And then I think they kind of rebranded. They used to be called Pop Rock, and now they're called Fela. So they changed and rebranded themselves and kind of went off more on their own from the company they were associated with before. I'm not sure how much is common knowledge, so I don't want to.
Right. No, that's all right. That's all
but-
good. We just wanted to know about your story as in what happened. So COVID hit, and then you realized there's basically not a lot of inbound from there. What did you do after that?
Yeah. So I knew TikTok was a thing for a while there, and I was very against it early on. Like it just didn't feel like a place for me, as like the kind of work I was trying to create didn't feel like it fit on there. But I remember reading like an article one day about all these young people sort of blowing up overnight and becoming these millionaires off of just very basic dance content. And I kind of, it was interesting to kind of understand how, because it was sort of this new upcoming platform, that if you were doing something different and interesting on there, you could scale very quickly in comparison to where Instagram was at the time. And it was an interesting place because it felt like a blank slate where nobody knew me on there. Like I still had all my friends and people knew me on Instagram, and it felt very personal. And if I put something out, it felt like I was being judged pretty heavily by everybody. And that at least back then, it really affected me at the time, like how people responded to what I put out on Instagram. So I thought, here's this new place where I could just experiment, like to the limit. Like I could play around with being on camera and acting and doing all this stuff that I'd never tried before, and just get to play around and try and learn new things. So I made it kind of a goal for that summer. I think I bulk made like 30 videos and then started posting them pretty consistently, and then trying to use those 30 videos to understand what was working and what wasn't, so that I could then create to how it was responding. So that was like, I spent some time, I just shut everyone out and spent like 2 weeks creating as many videos as I could, trying to kind of just learn different VFX concepts that I'd seen or tried acting. Like I remember I did some where I dressed up as Beetlejuice with like full makeup.
Oh, wow.
And recreated like the Beetlejuice scenes where he's really small and he's talking to like the big girl. Like she's regular size, but he's like in the little town, really small. So I was trying to do, just got way out of my comfort zone, and it was actually very like liberating, and I felt so excited about creating, like just on my own.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the story kind of goes the same way for a lot of people, where one video started blowing up all of a sudden. I think it was only my 5th video. It was this one where I was just sort of like sitting on top of these houses. Like I made myself giant, and I was just kind of sitting there watching cars drive by. And that video, I think started going like it was like at 50,000, and then it went all the way up to like 600,000, and it got me very excited.
Yeah.
So I just kind of doubled down
Yeah.
on that for a while. And then the thing that was interesting, I saw a lot of people at the time, they were doing these, help me get to this number of followers.
Oh
or
yeah,
like,
I remember that.
if-
I remember that trend on TikTok. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
No, I don't. What
It was like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, people would ask you to comment so the video doesn't flop. Like, they were literally just begging you, like, come on, let's not make this video flop. And it actually fucking worked, by the way. Like, there was so many of those videos that
Yeah.
went viral. I was like, I should try that
Did
shit.
you do one of that?
Sort of like that. What it was, I was still in school at the time, and I was starting to think like, okay, maybe there is a way where I could like take this on full time if I went all in on it. And I was already doing, like, with music videos, I was already feeling like school was a little too much while also being a director. So I was already at a point where I was gonna stop going to school. But I decided to kind of make it like if I can hit 100K, my dad will let me drop out. Like it was like I made this deal with my dad that if I can get up like this level. And it's funny how people just love that like underdog story of just like, yeah, screw school, let's get this girl
Yeah.
How much the video
up
got?
there. Like that video got, I think, 7 million views.
What?
And I jumped.
Are you serious?
I jumped from like.
That was worth it. That was
And
worth it.
And I think I went from like 30,000 to 600,000 in like the span of 2 weeks, and it was insane. And the thing is though, I think on TikTok, following really doesn't the number doesn't it doesn't equal the amount of views you're gonna get on the next
Yes.
videos.
Yes.
And that's a very hard thing to deal with when you feel like you've made it somewhere, like
Yeah.
this is going to be the new normal.
Yes.
And then coming down from that of now trying to follow up a video with 7 million views
Oh, good
and
luck
things
doing
kind of
that,
going
yeah.
back down.
It can be depressing
Yes.
trying to make it happen. Was it, just want to get it right, the video was you just saying I want to be creative, I want to do this full time, help me convince my dad? Was that
If
sort
I
of
get
the
to
video?
100K, my dad let me drop out of school.
Was that the idea?
Yeah. It was like that, but it was very, very heavily edited in like a crazy, like the whole video is so stimulating the entire time. Like it's like transition every second, but back and forth. And then on top of that, I remember I did this thing where, I don't know how I incorporated it, but there was like these angels that I hid in the video. And at the end, you kind of say like, find all the angels, and people would rewatch it to try and find all these hidden angels in the video.
Smart.
So it was sort of like jam-packed every possible way that this could get engagement. I'd like studied the platform for a while at this point, and I'm like, I'm just gonna make like just the complete, total, like kind of like pretty much total sellout video. But it just felt like I had nothing to lose. Like let's just see, because I'd seen so many other people use that strategy and just blow up and get all these opportunities that way. So yeah, like it was kind of like, why not? Like nobody else, like it felt like nobody was watching me. It felt like no one was there to judge. Like nobody in my real life knew I was doing this.
Yeah.
So I could just try anything. And I definitely made sure to put like all my effort into it. Like it wasn't just like a complete, please give me followers. It was like
No, it was a
like I'm gonna put
well
all
done-
the skill.
Well done video, right? With a lot of backed up research and a lot of execution done the right way. And tell me, when you got the 7 million views, did you show the video to your dad?
Yeah, I think my dad been watching everything that whole time. Yeah, he's been very supportive.
And then what
So I
happened
think
when
he
he
was
saw the
already
result?
watching it.
What happened when he saw the result? I'm curious. I want to see how this ends.
I think she dropped out. You dropped out, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, he was in on it the whole time. It was already a decision I'd kind of made that I'm gonna at least take a leave of absence from school, and he was completely okay with that. It wasn't like this video, him being the one that, like, having any care if this video performed well as to how if I'd leave school like it wasn't really, it was just kind of fabricated.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a part in the video where we shake hands, and it's like it's obvious like that he knows the concept of like why we're shaking hands, and that this isn't really for real, but it added to the story. That was
yes, 100%. So now what I want to know is, this is the time where I guess soon after you left school. So if I were in your position, I think this is the time where I would have wanted to make sure all the economics are fine, right? Like, I'm going to do something that is going to bring in cash so that I know that I can make enough to follow my, passion, to continue my pursuit in the world of art, in the world of filmmaking. So what was your process after that? Because again, we know this. You might get 7 million followers on TikTok, but that might not really translate
to
into
7
anything.
cents probably at the
Yeah,
end.
it really depends. It's not the old social media anymore where you would have people on YouTube with 1 million subscribers and they're definitely well off now. It's kind of different now because people do get the numbers, but it doesn't really translate. It really depends on the way you talk with brands, if you can get sponsors, if you can find different ways to bring in income. So what was your process like after that?
Yeah, well, I think I was in a very fortunate position of like how I positioned myself on TikTok was like a filmmaker trying to make videos at like a very high level of production and quality. So there was this interesting thing where I was able to make videos that performed really well, but that also kind of had this higher level, like almost felt more like ads than they did, like the dancing shot on iPhone videos that other people were making. And it was also like the perfect timing of all these brands wanted to be on TikTok and they wanted to be part of it and relevant on there, but they didn't necessarily trust just these random kids that had big followings but not a lot of quality or like depth to the videos they were making. So I was that perfect middle ground of like seems to know what she's doing as far as the platform, but is making film level content on the platform, but that performs well. So it was this great crossover where I think brands were able to really trust that I was going to reflect their brand image properly while still being able to be engaging with like and understanding how the platform worked. So I as far as like following to the amount of brand sponsorships I was getting, I think it was like looking back now and talking with other people, I think I was making quite a bit more early on than a lot of other people were, just because it was like a perfect unity of they could also post it on their channel and not feel like it was like low quality.
Yes.
And I could put it on mine and they still got some engagement from my fan base on there. So I think in that first 6 months, I'd already sort of was making a level that could be my full-time job. And that's what felt really exciting about it. Like I had my main partner at the time was this brand called Light Tricks. They make this video editing app called Video Leap.
Yes, Photo
They
Leap
also
and Video
are responsible.
Leap. Right, they have multiple apps. They got
Yeah.
Photo Leap, Video Leap. Their apps are really good.
Yeah, they also make Facetune.
Yes.
So I think that's their biggest one. But so that was sort of my main sponsor, where we were doing, I think, 4 videos a month that were on my platform, but they were also going to use internally for their tutorials. And it felt like if I didn't continue with them for too many months. I think maybe we did 3 months worth. But even just that sponsor alone would have been a solid amount for someone my age to be making. And that was what really made it feel like this is something I could take seriously and scale to a level that I don't have to be doing. Like this could be my full-time job. And I think that's also what sold my family on it as well, is that like this was also bringing in like a solid amount of income, more so than what I was making as a video director. So it was yeah. And I think as far as like where it's at now, I think I've been kind of making a solid level where I definitely want to scale further than where I'm at now, but I've been able to kind of be saving up and still living at home, so it's sort of just all in investments and savings, and I can kind of move forward without a lot of stress or anxiety about my financials. So yeah, it's TikTok.
That makes sense.
Even though I don't like TikTok that much, I can I owe it that.
If resources were not a constraint, so imagine you had a budget, an unlimited budget, what would you create? Resources, any resources,
That's a good
budget,
question.
human resources, anything.
Yeah, I think the weird thing that's kind of come up with my work is that I think the fact that so much of it is this very DIY style, that's so ingrained in the aesthetic and like the look of what I make that once I bring budget back in, it kind of loses what makes it feel like mine. And
that's exactly
it's
what I thought. That's why
now.
that's why I asked the question, because I was looking at all of your videos and I think, what if she has a lot of, when someone comes to her and say, okay, get this high-end camera, get this high-end lighting. Now you have 20 people to work for you on this short. What would you do? What would you create? Can you do the same thing? Can you create the same video?
Yeah, it's so hard to say. Like I haven't had that happen yet where I have big budget and we're still trying to encapsulate the thing that makes it feel like my video. But I think I'd have to be very, very specific about that being a thing, like that the DIY aspect and that kind of rough around the edges of like the style of the editing and like the shots. If what they really want is that style, like if that we would have to kind of push back with like minimalizing the crew, maybe thinking about location or some other element where like that you could put more budget towards like more days of shooting instead of one day with big crew and big cameras. But maybe we scrap the camera, just shoot on iPhone or shoot on a DSLR.
Just use the budget to
and
buy
shoot
beer
like
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there'd have to be a big conversation there about what their actual expectations are, because I think it's also very confusing for a lot of people as to what elements of the videos that I make are the thing that they're most attracted to, because it's like a lot of people come to me asking if I can take their already like pre-shot music video and add like the Hallie style to it. And
Can you?
It's like that's I mean, I haven't really tried, but I just think it'd be a completely different process, considering that I think like everything that I make is very meticulously like storyboarded out, and the transitions are very much associated with like knowing shot for shot what's happening to be able to have those things flow so nicely. And if you're just taking like somebody's performance take of them rapping and trying to kind of add in some kind of crazy editing to make it feel like my world isn't necessarily like being very, very good at VFX, After Effects edits. It is sort of a mixture of planning and strange, like inventive VFX and transitions, but that are highly built into the concept. So it's not like you can just do it after the fact.
Makes sense.
No, absolutely. That makes sense. I do want to talk about the fact that right now, through content creation, how as an artist you can truly enable yourself to create. And we talked about this with, I believe it was Jay on another episode of the podcast. It's beautiful how with the tools that you've been given, right? We talked about Instagram first, right? And how that helps you communicate and contact different people to gain new contacts. How you use TikTok to start sharing your content and finding out what works and what doesn't. And now you're doing that on YouTube and Instagram, of course, but also other tools such as Blender and Unreal, which are absolutely free right now, that you can use to basically self-fund yourself into becoming a filmmaker, right? This 50 years ago was not possible. You have to go work with a crew and you have to be able to basically you have to be geographically privileged to be able to be in a location that has these crews, and then be able to get yourself in there and then work your way up the ladder. Whereas now with you said you're in your room, but you're able to use Blender, Unreal to create all of these worlds, these different looking worlds, and then basically gain hundreds of thousands of views, followers, of people who truly enjoy your content, and you can eventually become the filmmaker that you want it to be. And it's, I think, a beautiful time to live in now, to have all of these accessible. And I want to talk to you about that, because we talked about all of your journey. We still haven't gotten to how you use Blender and all these tools nowadays to bring this Hallie that we know to life.
Yeah, I mean, it is insane how I think the amount of tech that's coming out, making it so much easier to create these effects and like create worlds on your own, has sort of leveled the playing field for filmmakers on a technical level. Like you can be making almost Hollywood level videos or films with what's available, and it's actually not that hard to learn, and it's getting easier and easier as things come out, especially with AI assisting with, especially like AI assisted animation is very interesting, like how fast that's moving that industry along. But I think it comes back to like, now that, like, if you live in a world where you can just sort of with the click of a button create what, like, the visual aspect of what's in your head, like what story are you trying to tell within that world? Because like it is so easy to build out anything, but then when you have infinite opportunity to do anything you want, what is the substance behind that? And I think it's going to become a place of, you really have to be able to be a storyteller and be like, have interesting stories to tell, on top of also like utilizing all these tools. And like it's definitely, it's going to get to a point where storytelling is like, I think storytelling's always been more important.
Yes.
But it's getting very much to a level where you don't need any kind of production team or budget to be able to play on the same level as Hollywood. Especially to where people, I think these days, are a lot less concerned with how things look, or like the VFX side of things, as long as you're getting your point across, or like the idea is very clearly there. People completely ignore, like, you can just talk with a iPhone, like the green screen background filter, and just put an image behind you, and now you're the guy that's serving you at McDonald's, and you're like a drive-through window, and people just fall in love with the stories and the characters and completely ignore the fact that it is just very low-end production.
Yes.
So when you add in the fact that now we can actually create high-end production, like it at home like that, it's insane where things are gonna turn. Especially when you collaborate with people, like if you can take people that are really into this technical VFX side and bring them together with the people that are great actors and are great storytellers, very quickly you can be a powerhouse of entertainment that like completely cancels out any kind of Hollywood stories that are just beautifully edited and the VFX are insane.
Yes,
but they just have nothing to offer as. Yeah.
No, absolutely. We talked about this, right? Like nowadays, I mean, in terms of movies, there's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of sequels. There's not a lot of original content coming out. Whereas I think there's a lot of creators on social media who have original content and original ideas. So that's why this democratization of 3D, for example, I'm just talking about one aspect of it, is going to be so helpful as more people learn tools like Blender. I feel like there's going to be so much more creators out there. And that is exactly what we're seeing, for example, with you, right? Like the way you're able to express your ideas by creating these worlds, because Blender is free and it's available for everybody. There's just millions of tutorials out there to watch and learn at home. It is what's beautiful about all of this. That's just what I think about it.
I'm just curious to know, how did you learn Blender, by the way?
I've only really been using Blender for the past year and a half or so. And it originally, like, I think it was very hard for me to get into it because I was going about it the way where you look up beginner blender tutorial and you do the donut.
Yes, of
And
course.
you go through.
Of course.
And I think learning how to make the donut made it even more overwhelming for just how many different parts of the process there were, from fabricating the object and like the texturing and like UV mapping, and it felt like if I'm ever gonna get to the level where I want to create a whole world or a whole movie scene, it's gonna take years of getting good at this. And it was only, I think, when I started getting into photogrammetry and LiDAR scanning and then bringing that into Blender that I realized that you could reach a level of realism quite a lot quicker when you're kind of using real world assets and image texturing and bringing in just a few pre-built models that, like, of chairs and things that you don't, like, why bother modeling them when there's thousands of them that other people have modeled. And then, yeah, like, just bringing these three elements together of, you know, like, I'd LiDAR scan a room, and since it's in the background, even though it's a little mushy, it's the depth of field will hide that. And then you put your chair in, or you put like a MacBook model in the foreground, and you have the camera kind of come in, and you light it in like the lighting that I love, and it's pretty much almost real. Like, you almost can't tell it apart from a real shot like that. And I figured out that that's like, you could do that very quickly without a lot of knowledge of any of the other parts of Blender, without knowing how to model. You just need to know basic camera motion and lighting. And I think that's when it started to feel like something that I could really incorporate into my work, and without spending hours and hours understanding the entire interface. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I think that's what I tell a lot of other filmmakers that are trying to incorporate it in, because I think they've been getting stuck in that same kind of way as to how you actually can progress to movie set, and it doesn't actually take that long.
You know, first of all, I think everybody starts with a donut tutorial. We even had Andrew Price on the podcast. He was one of the best, like, to talk to, because he was so genuine, and it was amazing hearing his story. But generally, that's how we started our Blender journey as well. But I agree with you. It is overwhelming, but it is also really funny, because if I were to make a prediction, you know how editing has become so widely accessible for everybody? Like
CapCut, like 2 minutes, edit everything.
Absolutely. And like the effects on CapCut are now easier to apply than it is to do the same thing on Premiere or After Effects. Like, there's so many good editors on CapCut than there are like on Premiere, because everybody's just like quickly, you know, editing videos out and putting them. I genuinely believe eventually that will happen to 3D. Not now, it's going to be a couple of years away, but it is going to happen, because I'm seeing so many more people who are not born as 3D artists. Like, this is not their thing, but then they're now learning Blender because it's free, and the donut tutorial is there. Everybody talks about it, and then they start incorporating their basically the tools into their workflow. And just like you said, it's beautiful because you don't need to really know modeling. That is so true. Unless you're trying to become a modeler, more often than not, you're just trying to get your story across, right? If you're creating something, and all you need is to just know a little bit of modeling, just enough, but the rest of it can be done with photogrammetry. We fucking use photogrammetry all the time.
I mean, when we were in Canada, we used to use our drone for photogrammetry, which it was
the most
amazing.
fun days.
It was the most amazing part. Since we are here now in Dubai, we are not allowed to fly our drone here.
We would go to Stanley Park, and then we would fly the drone like nearby there, and then we realized we shouldn't be flying nearby there. So if there's anybody watching right now, don't sue us. But that was beautiful. Canada has a lot of beautiful places to do photogrammetry. Honestly, it's one of the best places to do photogrammetry. Probably the best place in the world to do photogrammetry, because there's so many beautiful monuments. There's so much nature. And we started with photogrammetry of different places, but then we had Gaussian splats come out. We had the
nerds. We went to Gastown. We went to UBC. We scanned the whole, what was it, BC Place, the stadium.
Oh yeah, we did.
We scanned the whole stadium.
We would go out like at 6 a.m. in the morning when there's nobody around.
At the steam clock in Gastown, so nobody is there, and then we would scan the whole place.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was really good.
You know what? That's actually the first video I saw about Gaussian splatting when it first came out. Is your guys' video with the steam clock, and like, and it was insane because it's like it's crazy that I got to see that done on like such a familiar place to me. Like all the places you were scanning were very iconic. Like when I was growing up, that's like where we used to hang around. So it was so crazy seeing that, like as the first thing I'd seen done in that way. Yeah,
that's awesome. First of all, it's awesome to know that you watch those videos. And when I do want to say this, when we're back in Vancouver, and you are back in Vancouver, we have to meet up and we have to do a dope video together. Because I think the three of us teaming up together, we're gonna make a super dope video. Like we're gonna take some photogrammetry somewhere in the city,
Gaussians.
and then we can make like the sickest video. I cannot wait to see how that turns out.
that'd be so sweet.
I know
you
it's gonna
guys-
be awesome.
Yeah, who knows what will be out by then? Like as far as like the tech, it's gonna be crazy.
Imagine.
Oh,
No, please
okay,
go
you go.
ahead.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys, especially coming from a place of you are constantly learning all the new tech as it comes out. Do you ever feel like overwhelmed by the idea that it's gonna so quickly get better and the things you're learning now are gonna be obsolete in like 2 months?
Yes.
Oh, no, the updates are so fast, and you know we can't really keep up. And you know things like Gaussians, when we found out about it, we started creating video, and it got so big. But there are so many technologies that are coming out on a day. There was a time during summer that every day there was a new AI app.
Yeah,
every
right.
Single
There was
day.
there was definitely a time period about 6 months ago, right before we left Vancouver, where there was updates, especially with AI. I felt that where I was like generative AI, generate these 3D models, all of these things were coming out, and I was thinking to myself, holy shit, all that time learning tutorials, is that going to waste? Like, do I need that anymore? And it is a scary feeling, but what are you going to do about it, right? We cannot control the updates. We cannot control technology. One thing that I realized when you're at like early teenage years, you never complain about updates in technology because you haven't really learned anything. You're just consuming everything. That's why teenagers are always the best at like, you know, when it comes to TikTok, they know the trends more than anybody else. Like I'm talking about early teens because they're like 24/7 on it. So I always try to look at it that way, and I want to take that approach because I do see the comments under our videos when we talk about anything AI related or even Gaussian splats. Some people, not a lot, maybe like 1% of the comments is like people like saying, way to go, man. Thanks for taking away our jobs. I'm like, first of all, your job's not taken now. Like, chill, dude. It's probably going to be like 5-10 years away. But the thing is, we all always have to learn how to adapt and always have to deal with what is coming in. Or else you're just going to be left out. I genuinely feel that's the best way to put it. You can try to sugarcoat it and say that, you know what, it's unfair. But at the end of the day, I agree with you. It is overwhelming, and it is going to get faster and faster because there's more people creating these technologies. But the best way is just to take it all in and try to be better every day. Focus on yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel about it too, where you have to really double down on like who you are as a creative person and what your creative style is and your interests, and emphasizing almost your own personality through everything that you do. And no one can take that away. Like AI or all the crazy VFX tools coming out, like they can't take that part of you away that is what you like and your experiences and how you materialize that into your art. That part of the process is never something that like the tech can take away. So that's kind of what keeps me comfortable. My comfort is in that. And yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I was just thinking, one video I think would be cool to see from you is about Apple Vision Pro, because you talk about all these social media, different aspects of social media, and nowadays seeing all these people wearing the Vision Pro and just walking and doing daily tasks, it is the most cyberpunk thing that I'm seeing, and it's so
I think
weird.
it's a phase. I think it's a phase.
Dude,
Like,
how
probably
is it going to be a phase if this thing
I'm
is...
sure it's not going to be out. Like in a few months, nobody's going to go on a metro with Apple Vision Pro.
We'll
Apparently
see.
even you cannot use it in motion.
You can, right?
I don't think so. I don't know. I read somewhere, but probably you can use it in plane. You're in motion.
But as long as I actually don't, I don't have one. I don't know, but I can definitely see you making a video about that, like one of those doom scrolling videos that you did, similar to that. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit. Like, I don't have one personally. I have tried it before, but not the entire experience of it. But just about how, especially with AI and how we can kind of create these people to talk to that aren't real, but they're pretty much just a reflection of ourselves, because you kind of feed them a bunch of data about yourself, and then they're using that data to kind of talk back to you, like those AI therapists, or like the Snapchat AI friend. It's that idea of like the perfect friend, because it is just everything you are regurgitated back in a different way. And
Yeah.
I think about how that's a lot how when I have dreams and I hang out with people in my dreams, the conversations and the feeling I get feels very comforting and like I'm very understood. And it obviously makes sense because those people are me, like are
Yes.
just a version that I'm making up. So obviously those conversations go very well and feel very nice. And I wonder how like I have a hard time waking up from those dreams. Like I'll go back to bed. Like if I don't have any reason to get up in the morning, like I'll stay there as long as I can.
Continue the dream.
So I just wonder how that's going to be once you can kind of create these worlds inside your Apple Vision Pro of just living in this perfect kind of scenario, and how hard that's going to be for people to kind of detach from that when why not just keep living there. And I was trying to make a video kind of like connecting those two ideas eventually.
That's a very dope topic, actually.
That's what I'm telling you. No, her video ideas are genius. That's why, again, the moment we saw it the very first time, it hit us, and that's why we had to have this conversation. And you know, Hallie, it's been genuinely a blast talking to you. We learned so much about you and what goes into creating all of these videos, and just understanding what brought you here, right, from the story. So first thing, I just want to say thank you again from the both of us, because the time you've given us has been amazing, and we cannot wait to see all of these ideas that you just talked about come to fruition. We'll be watching every single video, every single story, and we just can't wait to see what you create.
Thanks so much, guys. Big fans of you guys, and I'm really happy that you brought me on. It's been really cool getting to talk.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely. What we're going to do is we're going to leave all of the links to the videos and the social platforms that you're on down in the description so people can check it out. We definitely recommend, if you haven't already, definitely do it after listening and watching this podcast. It's probably going to take up some of your time because you're going to be stuck there just
Scrolling
like
the whole thing.
you're
yeah.
going to be going down that elevator on Hallie's profile, but you're going to love that time anyways, and it's going to be awesome. So again, thank you so much, and to everybody watching and listening, you guys are awesome. We will see you guys next week. Until then, ciao.
Ciao.